What is going on? And welcome back to another episode of iCoach Nutrition Radio. Today's episode, we're going to be diving into how to stop over consuming food and alcohol. I had somebody pose the question. They said, I can't stop myself over consuming food, overindulging in food, whether it be at night, whether it be on the weekends, basically just eating too much. And then also on the same token there with the alcohol intake, overindulging in alcohol, over consuming alcohol, using alcohol as a stress relief, binging on the weekends, and really just struggling with over consuming food and alcohol. And so we're going to dive into one of the best strategies that you can possibly implement to start building awareness, right? Because awareness precedes change, right? And so the strategy that's going to help you to start building awareness so that then you can start to create change, so that you can start to change your habits, you can start to change your lifestyle, you can start to change your life. All right. And so that one tool, right, that's going to work for both of these. And honestly, you could apply this to anything in life. It's going to be track, right? Tracking, using a tracking tool, right? Because if you don't track it, you don't change it, right? Tracking, right? And this could be done with something like a tool like MyFitnessPal. A lot of y'all listening to this have probably heard of that tool, right? Tracking your nutrition, tracking your food on the free app, MyFitnessPal, right? Tracking your alcohol on MyFitnessPal. Using a habit tracker, right? This could be as simple as go on Google, download, create a Google account, create Google Sheets, right? Which is like Microsoft Excel, right? And then from there, create a habit tracker, right? And all this habit tracker doesn't need to be anything fancy. It's just literally create a column, right? Where you have check boxes, right? And you start tracking your nutrition. You start tracking your alcohol intake. So for example, you could create some habits within nutrition. Maybe you're tracking your calories. Maybe you're tracking your macros. Maybe you're tracking your vegetable and fruit intake. Maybe you're tracking your protein intake. Maybe you're tracking how many meals you eat per day. Like you could go into so many different categories here for you to start to track, right? Track your alcohol intake, right? But start to actually track these things, right? So that you can start building awareness, right? When you build awareness creates change, right? One of the things that I did, I shared my story there with becoming sober. It's been coming up. So I just passed So this was January 17th when I started it. We just passed August 17th here pretty recently. So 7 months, right? 7 months sober. One of the strategies that I used, right, to build this awareness that I needed to make this change was that, subconsciously, I kind of knew that I was drinking alcohol too much, right? But the reality of it is like we tell ourselves what we want to hear, right? We tell ourselves stories. We tell ourselves BS stories, right? We say that we're doing something consistently, but we're not. Or we say that we aren't doing things that much, but really we are, right? And so what I just did is I got literally a calendar, put it right there on my wall, and every single day that I drink alcohol, it didn't matter if it was 1 drink or 10 drinks, I would put an X on the calendar, right? And so what did that do? Well, it started building awareness. I was able to start understanding, okay, how many times am I consuming alcohol over the course of a month, right? And then what did that do after I started doing month after month after month after month? Well, it made me realize, oh my God, I'm consuming alcohol on the majority of days of the month, right? If I'm checking that box, if I'm Xing off that box for more than 50% of these days in a month, which that's not that hard to do, right? I mean, think about the people here that just drink on the weekends, for example. Let's call it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Multiply that by 4 weeks. That's 12 days. That's almost 50% of the month if you're just doing that. So it's not that hard. If you're drinking 3-4 days a week, you're consuming alcohol the majority of the days of the month. So again, I'm not here to talk to you about alcohol, good or bad, whatever. You're a grown-ass adult. You can do whatever you want to do. All I'm saying is that if you want to start changing something, if you want to start building good habits, if you want to get rid of bad habits, you have to start tracking, right? And so when the question comes up, how do I stop over-consuming food? How do I stop over-consuming alcohol? How do I stop doing things in my life that I don't want to be doing, right? Right? Well, you got to start tracking these things. Is it enjoyable to track these things? No, it sucks. It's not fun to track, right? It's not fun to actually go through the process of tracking. It's also not fun to have the realizations of what's going on with the tracking, right? When you realize, when I sat there and realized that, oh my God, I'm drinking alcohol the majority of the days of the month, and then that compounds over the course of 6 months of tracking this, and I see that, wow, 6 months in a row, more days than not, I'm consuming alcohol. That's not something that I wanted to see. It's not a realization I wanted to have, but it was an honest truth. It was data, and data doesn't lie, right? It was black and white. It was right there in front of my face. And as long as I was honest enough with myself to actually track it, I could get that data. I could get that feedback, right? And it created awareness, and awareness created change, right? Without awareness, you can't create change. Without awareness, you just keep telling yourself the same BS story over and over and over and over and expecting a different result. It's the definition of insanity, right? There's a lot of people that come to me, they want to feel their best. They want to look their best. They want to perform their best. They say that living a healthy lifestyle is a priority to them. But yet they just keep following the same narrative over and over and over, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And what's one of the best strategies that I use with clients to help them transform their life? Tracking, right? But there's so many people out there that don't want to track. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to track. I don't have time to track. I don't need to track. Okay. But what doesn't get tracked doesn't get changed. So if you care about something enough to where you actually want to make changes in your life, you want to make positive changes in your life, you want to build better habits, you want to get rid of habits that no longer serve you, you need to start tracking. Maybe that's on a piece of paper, maybe it's on a calendar, maybe it's on an app, maybe it's on something that you've created there in Google Sheets. It doesn't matter how you do it. It just matters that you actually do it, and you actually do it consistently, right? Not just for a few days, not just for a few weeks, not just for even a few months, but enough time, right, for you to actually create the awareness and then start to make the changes to then be able to transform the habits, right? And there's a lot of different people out there saying a lot of different things about how many days it takes to build a habit. Most recently, science tells us that it's 66 days. Sure, 66 days maybe of doing it every single day and never missing a day, potentially. But what do most people do? They start, they stop, they start, they stop, they start, they stop, right? So I would argue, if you look at this as to, I'm going to take the next year of my life to prioritize building habits. It doesn't have to just be one habit, but all of the habits that it's going to take, right? If you set a goal and you reverse engineer the process, you think to yourself, what are all of the habits that I have to form? What are all the habits I have to build in order to help me to be able to accomplish that goal or those goals? And what are all the habits that I currently have that are not serving me that I got to get rid of, right? Or that I have to change in a more positive way in order to help me reach that outcome. And then you reverse engineer the process and you start hacking away one day, one decision, one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year at a time. So how do I stop over consuming food? How do I stop binging on food? How do I stop overindulging on food? How do I stop eating out way too much? How do I stop making bad decisions when I go out to eat? How do I stop always eating unhealthy when I go out to eat? How do I stop drinking so much alcohol? How do I start working out? How do I start eating healthier? How do I start prioritizing my sleep? How do I start prioritizing staying hydrated? How do I start lowering my caffeine intake? How do I start managing my stress? How do I start becoming a better dad, a better mom, a better husband, a better wife, a better son, a better daughter? Track. Start tracking these things, right? Because what does tracking ultimately do, other than help you to build awareness? It helps you to start being more intentional. It starts making you live your life in a way that is more intentional, that is helping you to become the best version of you, so that you can actually start realizing that these are the things that I have to do to become the best version of myself, right? Me as a Christian, I look at this as not only become the best version of myself, but also reach my God-given potential in life. So it's not just about a goal, but it's about why do you want to accomplish that goal? And how do you bridge that gap between where you are today and where you want to be? You do that through tracking. You do that through being intentional. You do that through building good habits and getting rid of bad habits. You do that by creating awareness and helping you to transform your lifestyle in a way that helps you to accomplish your goals. And by doing that, as goal after goal after goal after goal is accomplished, you ultimately become that best version of yourself. You reach your God-given potential in life. So if you're trying to accomplish a goal, if you're trying to get rid of bad habits or build good habits, and you're not tracking this data, it's no different than finances. If you want to if you have financial goals for yourself, you got to track. You got to track your finances. You got to create a budget. You got to start building awareness around your financial health, your financial literacy. Right? So whether it's spiritual health, mental health, physical health, financial health, right? You have to start implementing tracking. Tracking allows you to create awareness. Awareness creates change. Change transforms your habits. It transforms your lifestyle. It ultimately transforms your life. Okay. If you have any specific questions, drop them below. I'd love to have a conversation. I'd love to help you. I'd love to chat. I'd love to support you. I'd love to hold you accountable. But ultimately, you have the ability to do it yourself as well. You have the ability to track. You have the ability to use any of these tracking tools that are out there. You have the ability to create your own. But if you can get invested in tracking and become a believer in what tracking can do for you, it will be one of the best habits. It'll be one of the best tools, the best skill sets that you'll ever incorporate into your life. And a few months from now, a year from now, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, you're gonna be like, wow, Justin, that was great advice. And I'm so glad that I started implementing that into my life. Thank you so much for that. Because that's what happened to me, right? I didn't invent tracking. I learned it. I started to become more of a believer in it. And I've seen it transform my life in more ways than one. Okay. Awesome, guys. Well, as always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you being a part of this podcast, this community. And anything that I can do to help you, serve you, please let me know. And I hope everybody has an amazing week. Until next time.